I am really excited for the new season. This is the most exciting time of the year for Premier League fans and also for FPL participants. Of course, that's what our podcast is all about. So I'm happy to come to you with some new content as we continue to get closer and closer, just a few weeks out before the start of game week 1 in the new season. First, a programming update for our podcast. We have an episode we did late last week that should be coming out this afternoon, where we get started on the conversation about how we're setting up our lineups. That's what the episode's all about. It's all about us talking about how we have our lineup set so far and asking each other questions and working through why we're doing what we're doing. We start out by talking about which premium players we own, and that begins with the double-digit price players at midfield and forward. And then we talk a little bit about the most expensive defenders. We don't get to goalkeepers, but we will stay with us throughout the summer as we continue that conversation. Now, as far as our next episode after that, so a new episode dropping, I think this afternoon, Dave said. We're going to be recording another one tonight because we want to keep the content going. We want to keep you informed on how you should be setting up your lineup as well, and also keep you entertained with new content in our podcast feed. And so we're going to continue to talk about the different players at the different positions. It's really interesting to see the discussion on where to spend your money. Obviously Haaland and Kane are the two, and Ronaldo are your double-digit forwards as far as pounds, their price point is concerned. And Haaland is a very exciting new face in the league based on his ownership right now. His ownership percentage, a lot of people think he's going to get off to a great start, apparently. But you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can, but you don't have to spend a lot of money at forward. Midfield is a place where you have Son and Salah at the premium price points. And midfield is that really interesting position where you can get more bang for your buck if you get scoring midfielders. But also on a good defensive team, they can also get you some additional points, an additional point, I guess, with a clean sheet for the defense. So midfield is really where you can get a lot of value if your guy's scoring points. If you get them at a good price in the midfield, there's a lot of points that can be scored there. But then at the same time, you look at the defense, and if you have scoring defenders, which has become a trend in the league the last couple of seasons and should continue into the new season, if you can find a wing back who's good for putting in maybe double-digit assists and scoring nearly double-digit goals, that is massive for your fantasy team. And you get that at a defensive price point, somewhere probably between 5 and 7. Well, TAA is £7.5. And so you can really get a lot of money a lot of points for your money at that position as well. This is just stuff that we're talking about. There's so many different ways to play this game, and that's when it gets fun. Early last season, the first half of last season, everybody had Mo Salah as their captain because you had to have Mo Salah as your captain. If you didn't, you lost ground on everybody else. That's not when FPL is at its most fun. When it's at its most fun is when you have a lot of different ways that you can play. And right now there's a lot of different ways to be able to set up your lineup with the £100 that you're going to start the season with. My last point for today is simply this. I'm not looking yet at who is playing yet in these preseason matches. Obviously, we're getting really close to the start of the season. The top players on each club are playing preseason matches. There's no doubt about it. But call me on that final weekend of July. For City and Liverpool, they're going to put their best lineups for the start of the new season into that Community Shield match. And all the other friendlies that are going to happen during that weekend, about 1 week out from the start of the season, that's when you're probably going to see a lot of starting 11s playing in these preseason friendlies, and that's when I'm going to try to find those players who maybe those 4.0 defenders who are going to start for their clubs in game week 1, or maybe that 4th and 5th midfielder option because it looks like they're going to get into their lineups for their respective clubs. That's when I'm going to look to see who's playing those preseason minutes right before the season begins. That's all I have for today. Continue to stay subscribed to our podcast in your podcast feed wherever you listen. You'll be able to continue to check us out, and don't forget, as we continue to update our social media channels, it'll get more frequent as the matches get going here at the beginning of August. But you've got Twitter, you've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, YouTube, and then also our Patreon site. That's really where we want you to go check us out, where you can see the different tiers to be able to provide a monthly tip to our podcast. That's all it is. It's basically a monthly tip, and that gives you some access to some additional things. And don't forget, even if you've played the FPL America Podcast League in the past, we reset it. So you have to join it again this season. You can do that by following or putting in the league code that you can find either in this video description or on our Patreon site. We'll have it posted there as well. Thanks so much.